Our next speaker is Paul Conroy. So Paul is a British freelance photographer and a filmmaker. He also happened to be a soldier with the Royal Artillery, and he's worked extensively as a journalist in combat zones in the Balkans, Middle East, and Libya. In February 2012, he was in Homs in Syria, and he was injured gravely while covering events from that city, which was part of the territory of the Syrian opposition at the time. So at the time, the building where he was with other journalists was shelled by government forces, and 2 of his colleagues were killed in that attack. And he's going to talk to us about his experience.
How are you doing? I think war crimes, is the central issue here. And I've covered many conflicts around the world. And I've seen war crimes, obviously. I've seen war crimes. But my partner, Marie Colvin, who you probably all heard of, who was killed on that day, we just spent a year in Libya watching what Gaddafi was capable of. The siege of Misrata, we spent 3 months as they just shelled that city. They reduced it to rubble. And we both said then, this is the worst that is. We can't see any how do you get any worse than what they were doing? We were going out every night in ambulances and just scooping bodies into bags, what was left of people. But funnily enough, we'd met in Syria in 2003, just before the last Gulf War, and I tried to build a boat, because they wouldn't let us into Iraq. We wanted to get into and shoot the war. So I tried to build a boat out of lorry inner tubes, and was like paddling across the Tigris River at night when the Syrian army found me and captured me and shut the boat up and that. They said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm looking for refugees." And they're like, "Don't believe you." So they threw me out of Syria. So I was already banned by the time the revolution, the uprising started. Marie was refused a visa, and I was already like, "You better not come back here, mate." So together we decided that we would go through illegally. We didn't want to go into Damascus. We didn't want a guided tour of what the regime wanted us to see. That isn't the kind of reporting that I do or Marie does. So we made the journey from Beirut with all sorts of smugglers, gun runners, anyone who could get us to that border. And for the first time, we crossed that border. And when you cross the border into Libya, you're into like rebel-held territory. When you cross the border from Lebanon into Syria, you step into the middle of regime territory. This is held by the regime. There are no safe areas where we were. The Free Syrian Army in 2012 was a very, very fledgling organisation. Popular to popular belief, it wasn't an armed uprising. It was a peaceful uprising. They were asking for, a slightly more, liberty, slightly less aggressive methods of government. And the Free Syrian Army were basically people who had defected in order to protect the people who were demonstrating. When me and Maria entered Syria, it took us 5 days to travel 15 kilometers to Homs, where we sat outside of Homs, and we just waited. Now, Homs at that time was under siege, and it's hard to describe siege. It sounds medieval, and actually this was medieval. They'd taken the whole city, they dug a trench around the areas that they deemed troublesome. They had a whole division, the 4th Division, that was commanded by Maha al-Assad, Bashar's brother. And this siege was total and complete. There was no food going in, there was no medicine. And this division, this mechanized division of wide area battlefield weapons were being fired on a 24-hour basis into civilian neighborhoods. Now, obviously the regime will say this was the stronghold of the Free Syrian Army. You know, the Free Syrian Army in Homs consisted of about 150 guys on Kalashnikovs and about 3 RPG-7s. You do not need a mechanized division to crush this. There were also 28,000 civilians in the area of Baba Amra. It took us a little while to persuade them because they thought we were nuts. You know, people were trying to get out of this siege, and there's us two there going, can we go in? And they go, what? So it took a little bit of smoothing, and eventually they got to trust us, and they said one day, you know, we were watching what was happening, because the activists had were live streaming. You know, we were just watching a town being reduced to rubble on a you know, minute by minute basis. They were just crushing. Now, I don't have to tell anybody that's a war crime. You know, deliberate targeting of civilians, number one. Starvation, not very nice. No water getting in and out. It was winter, fuel was cut. These people were under desperate circumstances. So we had to go in to, we had to crawl in through a 3-kilometre sewer tunnel to get in to the region of Baba Amra. And both Marie and I, when we popped up out of that tunnel, we just looked at it, and you know, maybe 50 years between us covering war, we just looked at it and went, my God, I've never seen anything like this before. We arrived at midnight, you know, bit by bit by bit by bit. Look, they got us to what was called the media centre. The media centre was a 3-storey building. It already had the top storey blown off. So there were 2 stories. And this is where the world was getting all its information about the siege of Homs from this essentially one room with media activists, you know, very, very brave young men who would go out and film and transmit and get the stories out. The next morning we woke, and it was, normally you have to look for a story. You know, we opened the door and the story was there. The story was plain to see. There wasn't a building that was intact. The first people you speak to say, we lost all our family yesterday. We lost, you know, we were overwhelmed with the amount of death, and not just wide area battlefield weapons being used on civilians in an urban environment. You know, I remember vividly a lady coming up to me with her baby, and she just looked and she said, maybe can you fix my baby? You know, so I unwrapped the baby, and about half of the baby's head was gone, and it was green mold, but she was carrying it around like it was still her baby. It was still her baby, but you know, this baby had been dead a long time. And you know, I mean, what do you say to somebody? You know, how do you explain that this is happening because you think this is a military stronghold? You know, you can't explain that. As time passed, it intensified. You know, we thought we'd seen everything. It kept getting heavier. The bombardment, the artillery bombardment reached a crescendo to the point where they said the activists who were getting the information, I said, look, if you guys don't get out now, you're gonna die. You know, we're leaving half of our people here, the rest of you are going. So they forced us out, so we had to crawl back through this damn tunnel, another 3 kilometers out. And the next morning, Marie woke me up and she goes, Paul, we fucked up basically. They didn't come in last night. So we'd left 28,000 people, besieged, starving, freezing, being massacred on a daily, hourly, minute scale, and that wasn't something that me and Marie could actually cope with. So we didn't really tell our editors, and we told them that we're going to go to Hammer, which was just further up the road. And they were like, okay, that's good. Observe it from the outside. But the next day we sneaked back in. You know, we said to the guys, like, we want to go back. You know, when we walked in, you know, these people just like, what the fuck are you doing back here? We got you out 2 days ago. It was like, yeah, we can't really leave. But for the next 2 days, I mean, if you thought, if I could describe to you the hell that was rained down on them people, the next 2 days it intensified to the point where they were just coming in and saying, they're dead. You know, we'd go to the field clinic and there'd just be body parts, there'd be bodies stacked high. And as fast as that somebody come on a gurney and the doctors, Dr. Mohammed and Dr. Ali, would look at them and try and do something, they'd die. They had no choice but to just stack them on these gurneys. And this was going on a basis that was just regular. You know, there was nothing. They had no drugs, no medicine. They had nothing to cope with this massacre. You know, we witnessed the massacre of civilians. No doubt, nobody in some government or some troll is going to tell me that I didn't see what I saw. You know, I saw it, Marie saw it. Our editor was also getting these pictures that I was sending back. And we got a call one night saying, look, you know, you guys have got to get out, the game's up. But me and Marie had already, we'd had a discussion, and you know, it was Tuesday or Wednesday. And I said to Marie, I think we should have a little chat. You know, I said, I don't think we're going to be alive by Friday to file a story for the Sunday Times. I said, what should we do? You know, there's no point us being here. Just, you know, so shall we go live? Should we tell the world live what's happening? And we spoke with the activists in the building, and they said, that's what you're here for, that's what we're here for. So we did interviews on Channel 4, BBC, CNN, where Marie described in, you know, quite touching detail the death of a small baby boy just because the doctors had nothing they could do. 7 o'clock the next morning, I had 2 shells that were quite close, 2 rockets. 30 seconds later I had another 2 rockets, and at that point me artillery, I used to be in the artillery, it clicked in what was happening. They were bracketing in on the field in the media centre, and then, you know, the first rocket hit, and I tried to grab my camera, second rocket hit, third rocket hit, and then, you know, sadly the 4th rocket hit direct, killing Remi Ochlik, Marie Colvin. I got a big hole. I thought I'd been hit by a lump of rubble. It felt like, I just felt a little bump on my leg, and I went, oh. And I bent down, touched it, and my hand come through out the other side of my leg, and I was like, shit. But rather bizarrely, I was stood there going, oh no, hospital food. You know, lumpy custard, gravy, and it's like, oh, people can bring your food in, that'll be alright. And then kind of came to a bit, and, you know, tied the tourniquet on, I went to look for Marie and Remi. Remi was dead. And then they started attacking again. They saw movement from the drone, so they thought, we'll attack again. So it was about another 20 minutes before they could take me into the building. From there I was taken to the field hospital where I knew they had no anaesthetic or no painkillers. And, you know, I wasn't the worst injured. There were people there, you know, were in terrible, terrible pain. But the thing was, they took me to a place that I knew was the target. That field hospital, you do not, under international law, target hospitals. So there's another war crime, you know, I mean, so you're going on, I can make you a very long list of war crimes that I saw going on. But you do not target hospitals, and unfortunately I'm kind of blown to quite a few bits. And they take me to the place that has got the biggest, you know, that is the target. And Dr. Mohammed, I walked in, Dr. Mohammed goes, oh, hello, Paul. I'm like, the doctor. He said, what's wrong with you? And bit of a hole in the leg, old chap. And he had a look and went, oh yeah. But they had nothing to do, you know, they got a toothbrush and a bottle of iodine, filled it up, scrubbed it out, and then stapled it together with an office staple gun. And then this carried on. You know, this didn't stop because they got us, you know, targeting civilians is a war crime. Targeting journalists is a war crime. Starvation as a method of war is a crime. You know, I mean, the list builds and builds and builds. And you know, the next part of the phase was that, you know, we had to sit and wait for 5 days to try and escape. They blew the tunnel up that we'd come in on, so we had no way out. They sent the Red Crescent, and the head doctor of the Red Crescent said, do not get in the ambulance because you'll be executed and put on the field, and they will put out the story that the rebels killed you. Do not get in the ambulances. So we just had to kind of sit and wait for some. They took Marie and Remi's body away, and then three of us sat in a room for 5 days, which they knew we were in. So they deliberately targeted civilians and journalists again and again and again for 5 days. And after 5 days, I think 20 of us set off. But they came in, they just said, we're going to try and get you out now. I think out of 20 of us who set off, perhaps 3 of us lived. You know, the rest were just blown to pieces or shot or whatever, or en route. And I escaped through a tunnel on a motorbike. And I got out, you know, and I didn't say block the media from the room. I said get them in the room. I said because, you know, dead, there was I think 7,000-8,000 people dead. And then when you tell the world, you think by telling the world, you know, very bad things are happening there, things that you would not comprehend, and tried to tell the world. And I think it's been an absolute and total disgrace, the response to Syria. The Syrian people have been lied to. They've been used in these big geopolitical struggles. I think there are so many people who are responsible for this, but I think there are also a lot of people who should be standing in front of judges answering questions on just exactly what they did in homes. And that's one city for a couple of weeks. Think how long this has gone on now.